Welcome to Aspen Ignites, Conversations to Build a Better World, a series from the Aspen Institute that brings together thoughtful people with diverse backgrounds and points of view. In this conversation, the future of work, with Shelly Steward, director of the Future of Work Initiative at the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program. She speaks to Financial Times U.S. Labor and Equality Correspondent Taylor Nicole Rogers.
Hi, Shelly.
Hello, Taylor.
It's great to be here in Aspen chatting a little bit about the future of work.
Yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
So I wanted to start off by acknowledging that obviously history plays a big role in what our workplace looks like today. Can you tell me a little bit about how we can reimagine some of our historical benefit schemes and other things like that to eliminate discrimination by race, gender, sexual orientation?
Yeah, so our entire system of labor protections and benefits has been built up to this point around exclusions, especially excluding Black workers and other workers of color, excluding women, excluding LGBTQ individuals, and other people who are too often left out of our economy and our society. And so we need to move towards truly universal protections and benefits that are designed around those who have been left out in the past.
So, Shelly, what would some of those benefits look like?
Yeah, we have some benefits that are intrinsically tied to work, things like paid leave, income supplements, and others that aren't, that are the result of the historical idiosyncrasy like healthcare. And so, to step way back, we need to ask ourselves, what is the universal system of benefits that anyone needs, not just workers? What would universal health care look like to separate that out from employment versus looking at things like paid leave, where something like accounts, where different employers could pool together to give someone a paid leave account that could follow them from job to job as they combine different types of jobs, that was accessible to domestic workers who are working different jobs in different people's houses, and agricultural and seasonal workers who are working intensely during some parts of the year and not so much during other parts of the year. All of these very real ways of working that don't fit into the full-time 9-to-5 year-round expectation that our current system relies on.
Absolutely. That's really fascinating. And also not what we typically think about when we talk about the future of work. And so that leads me to the topic of the moment, AI. How is AI going to affect workers?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I have learned from studying the future of work for the past decade, it's that prediction is very risky business.
Right.
10 years ago, automation was what everybody was talking about. The robots taking the jobs, what's it going to look like? That didn't come to pass. Tasks changed, the skills needed for certain jobs changed, but by numbers, we didn't see some sort of robot apocalypse. What's really interesting about AI and some of the generative technologies that we're seeing is they have the potential not just to impact the tasks performed on jobs, but also how work is organized, how people are hired, how they are managed. And without a lot of awareness, insights, and intention, those things are poised to reproduce inequalities, to hire people who have the most privilege, to exclude those who don't, and then to say that it's neutral because it was AI making those decisions. And so as these technologies take hold, as they improve our lives and make some jobs easier, we also need to be really aware of the ways that they intersect with the inequalities of our society.
Absolutely. I've read somewhere that something like 70% of the jobs that are at risk from AI are run by women. So what other groups are at risk?
Yeah, I think by and large, what we want to do is look at the whole ecosystem of jobs, because some of those that are most at risk in terms of people's livelihoods are actually not those threatened by AI or automation. They're jobs like home health aides, essential work, incredibly difficult to automate, even to imagine what that would look like. Fastest growing occupation by number of openings, also earning $27,000 a year. And so as much as AI is exciting and fascinating and worthy of studying and understanding, we also want to look at those other jobs, those jobs that are held disproportionately by women and especially women of color, and uplift them, recognize them as essential work that is not able to be automated, that we should be compensating and rewarding adequately.
I don't just want to talk about the downsides of AI. What are some of the benefits that workers will experience because of these new technologies?
Yeah, again, prediction is risky, but there's all sorts of creativity unleashed through AI. And one of the great things to see is how accessible some of these technologies are. Thinking again, 10 years ago with automation, not many people really got to experience what it's like to see a robot put a screw into a, tool that's being manufactured. Now anyone can get ChatGPT on their phone and see what it's like. Think about how those tools influence not just their jobs, but also their lives. What might they make easier? What might they make harder? And that accessibility of the newer technologies is really exciting.
Definitely. So while we're talking about things that can make jobs easier, let's talk a little bit about what makes jobs good. And I know you spend a lot of time doing research into this. So what is a good job?
Yeah, so the Aspen Institute Economic Opportunities Program worked with the Families and Workers Fund over the last couple of years to answer this question and to come up with a definition of good jobs that resonated with all of the stakeholders, with workers across sectors and income levels, with employers, with other folks, governments, everyone out there. And there's really three pillars. One of them is around economic stability. So that's your wages, that's your basic benefits. The second pillar is around economic mobility. So having a pathway through a career that's accessible and transparent, and having the opportunity to build wealth over that career. And then lastly, the third pillar is around equity, dignity, and respect. That you can have a sense of belonging, that you have equitable opportunity across the labor market, and that you have a sense of voice and power on the job. And that last one is kind of the cornerstone, because as much as this definition came from conversation and came from research, it may continue to evolve. And the only way to really future-proof a job in terms of job quality is to make sure that workers themselves have the ability to affect change and to fight for the conditions that make sense for them in their lives, in the context that's happening with the technologies as they evolve. And so that's really the centerpiece of a good job.
How do workers get that ability to affect change?
Yeah, labor unions are the most traditional and commonly thought of approach to increasing worker voice and power. There are also other models like cooperative ownership and worker-owned businesses, having representation in corporate boardrooms, making decisions. There's different sorts of employee engagement that companies can do. So we're really, trying to expand the possibilities and recognize all of those channels that workers can develop their voice and have power in decision making.
Now, those are great answers, but they are also answers that I don't think a lot of business leaders would be thrilled to implement. So what can businesses do to make sure that the jobs that they have are good jobs?
Yeah, so, we're putting together a Aspen Business Roundtable on organized labor right now with more than 30 top execs and CEOs of major name brand companies who actually see the benefits to society and to their own businesses of having empowered workers. And they're working together to build that business case in terms of, what's the bottom line, but also what's the narrative? What is the story we want to tell about how empowered workers and successful businesses can work together and can keep a shared vision of a prosperous economy where everyone benefits front and center.
Can you give us a preview of those conversations? What is the business case for empowered workers?
Yeah, when workers come to work and do their job and feel as though they have a say, they do better work and they stay doing that work longer. And we know how expensive it is to hire new folks when people move on, when people depart. And so when people enter a job, have a voice, and have a pathway, they're going to stay there. They're going to keep contributing. They're going to add to the productivity of that firm. And in the end, everybody wins. The business succeeds, the worker thrives, and the community around them is a good place to live, where people are civically engaged, democratically engaged, they vote. That's the world that we want to move into, that we want to see in the future.
Now, as we've been talking about good jobs, I couldn't help but think a lot of these things would be really difficult to obtain if you were a gig worker. So can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to build a good job for gig workers and other freelancers?
Yeah, so protections and benefits are the sort of foundation of a good job. What does every worker have access to? What is the minimum wage, hopefully a living wage? What are the basic benefits to provide security? And gig workers, and really anyone working outside of a traditional employment model, lacks access and has barriers. And so that's where universally available protections and benefits, along with the enforcement of existing laws like classification laws, come into place, so that if I'm working multiple jobs, if I'm fully freelancing, if I'm working part-time and freelancing on the side, all of that work contributes to a living wage over my full year of work, and that I'm getting the benefits for all of that work, and that there's not obstacles from some jobs or others because I am piecing together different work, or because I'm working in one way or the other. So, we started this conversation thinking about universal benefits and protections, and those need to include all the different ways that people work, all of the sectors people are working in, all of the ways that people contribute to our economy.
Shelly, we've covered a lot in this conversation, but I'm wondering, is there anything else you think people need to know about the future of work?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that the future is not determined. The future of work depends on decisions that we make today, decisions about policy, decisions about the way we want to lead business, decisions about the way we show up to work. All of those matter and will shape the future. And if we want to move to that future of shared prosperity, of democratically engaged citizens, we need to make decisions that push us in that direction. And I'm optimistic that we will.
I'm optimistic too. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat, Shelly.
Of course, thank you so much.